Hello, hello. Hopefully you can all hear me. This is Absolute Build's webinar, and Steve is the presenter today, but we're hoping that it'll be quite interactive and it will drive some discussion across the people in the room. Bit of background on me. So I work for Reed in the technology talent part of our business. So I represent a number of the business offerings from digital transformation through to experienced hires, early careers, and talent advisory. And across all of those different service lines, have lots of conversations with tech and talent leaders. And time again, we get told that they really struggle to identify ways to very comprehensively assess new talent coming into the business, map existing talent, track the development of those people. And whilst I've been aware of the Sophia framework for a number of years, it's not until I met Steve in the last few months and we've had conversations about this fact that I've found there's actually solutions out there and ways to use Sophia to map against a lot of those processes. So we've invited Steve in today to share his experience. I'll let Steve introduce himself and explain his background and relevance to this topic. And in a second, I might ask you guys to engage in a short poll, but I'll let Steve introduce himself to start with.
Hi, everybody. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. The reason I'm sitting here today is because I've been a CIO and a CTO facing the problem of what skills have I got? What skills do I need? What skills could already be in my workforce that I haven't tapped into? What skills are redundant in my workforce that really people are trading on and should have been retired years ago? So I came to Sophia. We're gonna use Sophia as a framework to discuss this today. But just a little bit of background. Sophia as a framework has been around for over 20 years. It's iteratively updated approximately every 2 to 3 years. There was a major update recently, and we're now currently on version 9. I came across it sort of version 5, so that's at least 10 years ago. Started to play with it in version 6 and became an active user of it in version 7. So I've got a long history. I'm a qualified consultant when it comes to Sophia, and I've got a long history of having used it for real in trying to get on top of skills and skills shortages and skills gaps. So that's why I'm delivering this today.
Excellent, thanks, Steve. So the invites for this were quite targeted. So I'm making some assumptions on this poll that I'm going to ask you, which is which area of the business you represent, because fundamentally I've invited technology leaders and I've invited talent leaders, but we have put it out there into the internet, so there'll be some random people on the call. So if you could just start by responding to this quick poll, because I think it'll help Steve to just understand a little bit more about the audience that we've got today. And if anybody has any weirdly wonderful and fantastic backgrounds that they want to share, you can pop that in the chat and let Steve know you're interested in the topic. So I think we've had 25 out of 36 on the call reply at the moment, Steve, and over half the room is people that work in talent attraction / talent development, and then we've got a mix of technology leaders and then others. So quite a varied audience today.
Okay, and that's brilliant actually, because one of the things that I found in the various CIO roles I've had is, whilst I have a specific need around technology, and I've worked in both CIO roles within end user organizations where we've just been users and consumers of technology, and I've worked in the other side where I've actually worked in technology businesses providing CIO functionality into the technology business as well. So, and there is a slightly different view depending on which side of that fence you sit. But one thing I will say is common, that the person at the top of the IT chain has to live within an ecosystem of how we acquire candidates and how we acquire the right people. It doesn't matter whether you're in a technology business or in a business that just consumes technology and uses it. If you're a senior executive in that business, you'll be working with skilled HR people to get you the right talent to talk to and the right talent on the right seats in your organization. So it's great that we've got that mix actually, and I'll be able to reflect that in some of the things that I discuss. So what I want to do is I'm going to share screen, but I'm not going to kill you with PowerPoint. In fact, I've purposefully avoided killing people with PowerPoint, if I'm honest. Partly because on this sort of webinar, for me, I hate it when I see that sort of thing. So I would try and avoid it. What I am going to do is I'm going to share a window and I'm going to move between tabs in that window. And then there'll be another couple of things that I share. I'm also about to pop into the chat. A PDF, and you'll find that PDF quite useful when it comes to some of the stuff that we discuss later on. So grab the PDF while you can. I think I've set the permission so that everybody who's in the chat currently can get hold of it. But effectively, that's a summary of skills. And that's the Sophia current version of the summary of skills. So let me pick the right window to share with you. You should see a picture of Barbie coming up.
Yep, we can see that, Steve.
Yeah, okay. And actually, I've picked this on purpose. This is a guy called John Kleist, who I do some work with in an organization called Skills TX. I would urge you, if you want to reframe your view about what sort of talent acquisition is in the tech domain, I would urge you to follow John and John's writings, mostly because he does come up with these very pithy memes that actually drive the message home really, really well. So in this one, it's like Barbie was never just one thing. If you go to a store now and you go and buy a Barbie, there are something like 40 active Barbies that you can buy today. You can buy, all sorts of Barbies in all sorts of situations. And effectively, that's because Barbie is continually reinventing herself to whatever the current need is and whatever the current zeitgeist is around what we want from that toy. And that's pretty much what we expect our people to do. We expect our people to be constantly reinventing themselves with the latest technologies, the latest skills, and we want to always hire people who are on top of that game. So I would suggest that you follow John. He does some great memes around what it is we're trying to achieve, and he's also very, very critical. He's very critical of some of the ways that we're currently trying to recruit people compared to what a modern digital workforce and digital skills economy looks like. So well worth having a look at his work. I'm going to go to the Sophia website. So the Sophia Home website is where we look at this framework, and there are some ground rules there are a couple of ground rules I want to give you around what a skill is as per the Sophia definition, but I also want to give you some other insights into why that's important. So the first ground rule I'm going to give you is there is a difference between a skill and a skill attribute. Now, I can't ask for a show of hands because people are off camera, but I'd bet if I asked you how many of you recently have put an advert out saying something like Java developer needed, Oracle database expert needed, C# programmer needed, Python programmer needed. That's what we tend to see a lot of out there in the marketplace. And actually, the world that I inhabit and the world that I've learned to inhabit actually says that's not what you're really looking for. And I should qualify that statement really, shouldn't I? because you know what you're looking for, but I just want to give you a different frame of reference for that. So the frame of reference I would work with is I need someone with programming and software development capabilities. So that's the skill. The skill is programming and software development capabilities, maybe software engineering capabilities, but effectively that's the skill I need. I need it at a maturity level. So that maturity level could be anything from level 1, which is a junior level, through to a maximum level of level 7. And level 7 is I'm recruiting someone who is going to set the standards for software development within this organization, and potentially, depending on the organization I'm doing this with, who may be setting software development standards in the industry. So now I'm looking at my skill is actually software development or programming, and I'm looking at a maturity level for that skill. So I'm looking at 1, the most junior, has to be directed in everything that they're doing, through to 7, somebody who sets the pace and sets the strategy and sets the standard for that skill. When we talk about Java, when we talk about C#, when we talk about Python, they happen to be attributes. They happen to be attributes. So this person they're a mid-level developer, level 4, and actually they've got some attributes that apply to that skill. One of them is that they're currently working in Python. Another one might be that they're currently working in C#. So actually the language is the last defining part of the role, not the first defining part of the role. And there's an old saying, there's an old leadership saying, which is if you hire for attitude, you can teach the skill. We actually take that one further and go, if you hire the skill, you can teach the language. So from that perspective, somebody who's been around the block and is a senior developer, if they've got object-oriented language background, they're going to reskill into another object-oriented language much more easily than you trying to find an exact match. And the challenge can be when you look at a match from an exact match, you often give yourselves extended timelines in trying to recruit people. So one of the things that Sophia allows you to do is it allows you to go looking for the skills, and then you can overlay the attributes on top of that. So when we talk about Sophia and we talk about the skills, what are we talking about? Well, there are 147 specific technical skills, and they're listed here. I'll give you an example in a minute. So there are 147 of these specific technical skills, and then there are 16 what we refer to as generic attributes. And those generic attributes are what we'd call some of the more generic skills that you would want or that you might develop along your career. So 147 specific technical skills and 16 generic attributes that you can apply to pretty much any role in the digital skills economy. So what I've shared in the chat is this chart. I've shared a PDF of this chart. And if you've downloaded that, you should find that it's clickable. So the chart itself...
We're going to have to share that afterwards, Steve, because it's a secure file through Freeman Clarke.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd said that anyone in the chat could download it. So here's the deal. If you contact myself, I can share that with you, or you can register for free on the Sophia website. There is a login screen, and you can register for free at no charge. And as soon as you register, you will be given access to that summary chart. So what I can also do, just for the purposes of this, I'll use it now. I'll stop sharing what I'm currently sharing, and I'll actually share the PDF because it's quite useful for you to understand what it does. There it is. So you should see the summary chart come up now. So effectively, the way it works is we've got category, subcategory, and then skill. So category, strategy, and architecture, and then within that we've got various subcategories, and then we've got skills. Notice that not all skills are ranked from 1 to 7 because some skills aren't appropriate at level 1. You wouldn't have somebody with capability and skill around strategic planning at level 1, 2, or 3. It starts to kick in at level 4, 5, 6, and 7. You might also notice when I hover over something, I get a little hand, And that's because the PDF actually links to the definition of that skill at that maturity level on the Sophia website. So these are our 147 skills. They're brought together in the idea of core categories like strategy and architecture, change and transformation, development and implementation, people and skills, delivery and operation, and relationships and engagement. So that's a comprehensive set of skills that have been developed over the last 20 plus years. And from going from Sophia 8 to Sophia 9, I can tell you that went from 131 skills to 147 skills. So 16 new skills were added in the latest release. And a lot of those were to reflect the modernization of IT around things like data and analytics and artificial intelligence, for example. So, Kevin, can you keep an eye? If anyone's got any questions, please drop them into the chat and I'll rely on Kevin to keep an eye on them coming into the chat. So before I move on, has anyone got any questions about the framework and what it's aimed at doing and what it's designed to do? Any questions coming in, Kevin, or not at the moment?
No, you're doing a good job so far, Steve.
Okay, so I'll ask you a question then. Just thoughts, randomly throw into the chat. What use could this be? Why do we need something like this in our lives? What are the challenges that something like this can help us to overcome? So I'll throw that out to the floor for you to, drop a quick type chat answer in, just a couple, just to see whether or not my thinking and the way that you're looking at this is aligned.
That's it. Audio settings.
Brilliant. Yeah. Look at that. I've just stopped sharing so I can read some of this.
It's not clicking in properly.
Yeah, you pretty much you're answering it. So
You're answering it, Kelly.
It's not like
yeah, so you're pretty much answering it. So the reasons that I wanted it, things that I've used this for, when I took gender out of the equation and just looked at roles and skills, for one organization, I proved that there was a 16% difference in gender pay. By just looking at the skills, two people, similarly aligned skills, but their gender affected their pay by about 16%. So the first thing is that you are completely, once you start looking at this, you're not looking at the person who plays golf with the boss. You're not looking at, well, what do I need to do? That whole woolly language about, well, I think you need to improve if you want to get to the next level of the job. So you're getting rid of that woolliness of the language. Yes, job adverts, you can actually take some of this stuff and apply it into
Steve.
Job adverts. Yeah.
In that scenario where you had the 16% difference, was it because the person was doing the same job and being paid less, or were they just being underutilized? So they had the same skills, but they weren't being used to the maximum of their...
In that situation, and I've highlighted it as one person, it was actually a group of people across different roles. But in that situation with that employer, they were aware that they'd probably got some old ideas around the way they promoted people. And effectively, they wanted to put a benchmark against how that had happened. And they wanted to use a sanitized, skill-based approach to move forward with. So for them, it was the eradication of old practices. They knew that there were old practices that effectively meant that women were getting paid less. And they wanted to bring something in that was effectively something that you could point at the data and you could point at the skills. And the skills you can assess, it's okay. The way that you use this, you tend to use this in a couple of ways. As an employee or as an individual, you would build your own portfolio, so you can go, I am going to now prove the skills that I've got. As an organization, you can look across all of the people who have got a profile, a skills profile, and you can start to map talent gaps. You can start to map people with the same similar skills that may have different roles or different job titles. Another organisation I used this with had 17 subsidiaries and they had 9 definitions of a project manager. So because they'd grown by acquisition, they were always on the acquisition trail. They were always buying new businesses, but they recognised they needed to go through a rationalisation of going, well, what is our definition of the skills that a project manager has?
We've got a question, Steve. This might be part of your future slides, so tell me if it is. But if it isn't, the question is, how are the skills benchmarked or assessed? So I'm assuming what they mean by that is, as an end user of this, how do I actually make sure that my judgment of someone's skills is the same as your judgment of somebody's skills? Yeah,
okay, that's a really, really good question. Thank you for that. So there's a couple of ways. You've got the informal route, which is, so I'll talk about Arnold Clark. Arnold Clark are a client that I work with. And actually, they were the first people in the UK to launch Sophia 9 based job advertisements. So I know I can talk about the Arnold Clark example because that works quite well. So we're using a tool with Arnold Clark that allows people to do an assessment against a type of role that is similar to theirs. So the first thing is they're not having to try and say what their skill level is across 147 skills, because that's quite a long, if you actually do want to do it against all 147 skills, it takes you about 3.5 hours to do the assessment. But effectively, so we give them a type of role that's similar but not their role, and they assess against that. So, and then what happens is we understand from that assessment, their team leaders have a chat with them and say, well, okay, you assessed low on this, you assessed high on this. Where you assessed high, for example, can you provide me some evidence? So can you go away and think about somewhere where you use that skill at that level and give that back to me in evidence so that I understand it? Where they may have scored low and their team leader is aware they've scored low, they might actually provide the evidence to them. They might actually say, well, actually, I've seen you operate at a higher level than that. So here's something that I want to remind you of. In situations, now Arnold Clark haven't implemented this bit yet, but in situations where team leaders and team members can't agree, one of the things you can do is you can go to independent arbitration of whether or not you've provided the evidence or not. So that can be a skill that you build in-house. So for example, an HR person can be skilled in this and can do a bit of arbitration between team leaders and team members. If you're in a grid environment where you might have a different line manager to someone who's managing you while you deliver in a squad, then you can accumulate evidence through your squad manager for your line manager to do the review with. And then finally, one of the things about Sophia being developed, it's been actually developed to an international standard for framework development. And one of the things that is required when you develop something to that international standard is there has to be a process for qualified external assessors. So, and this gets used a lot in government. So the Australian government, the British government, they are actually now publishing rate cards based on people. So if I say I'm a project director level person, there's a British government rate card for what a project director's skill levels in Sophia should be. Now, if I present someone as a project director, one of the things the government can ask is, has this person been externally assessed by a qualified Sophia assessor? So there are two things that you can do. Internally, you can approve somebody's profile based on whatever assessment criteria you've set. If you go to an external Sophia assessor and they validate somebody's portfolio of skills, their profile, that is then classed as endorsed. If it's endorsed, it means it's been approved by an external Sophia accredited assessor. So you've got everything from very informal chat through to providing evidence through to an external assessment route if you need to prove something because you're putting a rate card in because you're bidding into government, for example. So I hope that answers the question. A little yes or no would be quite useful. MH, I think it is, who asked it. But the answer is there's a range. And the answer, the other part of the answer is you will be good or bad at staying on top of this, depending on how organised you are in running your assessments, keeping your profiles, getting people to update their profiles. One of the things that I often find when if I'm working with an organisation and they're going out there and they're getting people to create their first profile. So for example, we did an exercise with a group of people. There was about 90 people in an IT department, and one of the things that happens is you end up in a situation where people are trying to say that they've got a competency in something that they used 20 years ago. And effectively, you end up with these bloated profiles. And one of the things that I often have to take organisations through is getting their people to go on a skills diet and actually trim down to what could you do? What have you been using 85% of the time in the last 2 years? Because they are your current skills. If you've used it 85% of the time in the last 2 years, then they are your current skills. Oh, another question coming, I think. How widely is this being adopted by organisations? Currently, my business is UK Gov and Data Professions Capability Framework, so DDAT type approach. No, they are slightly different in that the UK Gov Digital Data Professional Capability is actually aimed at advancing people within the UK DDAT framework. I'm not sure if we may have a UK DDAT expert on the call. I'm not sure if she's made it onto the call. With regards to this is aimed at globally available skills, and it's aimed at the fact that you might end up with a very wide variety of those skills in an operational organisation, and that could be everything from. So, for example, one thing that the government stuff doesn't cover is it doesn't cover what level of skill have your technical sales people got, for example. So if you want to do something where you apply this to everybody in your organisation, including people who might do technical sales, then this would be the tool that you would use. MOD, if you want to sell to the MOD will not ask you about DDAT standards. MOD will ask you for a Sophia-based rate card. So, and Kevin, I think you said you've come across that as well within Reed.
My history was bidding for pieces of digital transformation work or digital specialists via the DOS framework, which is a government framework. And yeah, the rate cards were all based on a Sophia scorecard effectively. But again, it wasn't. I was never trained on how to assess those people, so it was quite a challenging process for me to interview a candidate and then try and map them against this framework that was brand new to me. So this guidance is excellent. And I think in terms of Laura's question about how widely it's adopted, you mentioned Admiral Clark, Steve. That's just revenue organisations in the UK, but coming back to Nadia's point, widely adopted in Australia across their government departments, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things that's been on the cusp of becoming a widespread standard for the last 3 or 4 years. And we're now at the point. One of the things that I think has changed and will change and will now make this become a globally adopted standard is Sophia recently announced that they've gone into partnership with APMG. Around accrediting, around Sophia accreditation. So one of the things that's been holding Sophia back for a number of years is the fact that up until now there have been a very limited number of Sophia accredited assessors. But now that's moved to APMG. APMG are all about cranking the handle on getting people accredited at stuff. So from that perspective, I think the tap is now going to open. The thing that's been holding this back is not enough qualified assessors around the world to be able to look at a profile and go, actually, based on the evidence that's been presented, the discussion that I've had, and the skills that are being claimed, this profile is accurate. I think as we grow the number of assessors, the number of people who rely on Sophia as a currency and a way of talking about skills that they're looking for will grow substantially over the next 5 years. The other thing I would say as well is if you're an individual and you're a member of the British Computer Society, for example, the British Computer Society do have a version of Sophia that they make available to members who are on their development tracks. So the thing that the British Computer Society do is they offer something called Sophia Plus, and that again, but that is aimed at individuals. It's not aimed at organisations who might be wanting to do talent acquisition and look at the gaps they've got across their skill sets. Follow-up question. So where are the skills typically stored? I'll come on to that in just a minute. I'll come on to that in a moment. I may use a couple of slides to talk about that. But before I do come on to that, there is one other thing I want to talk about with regards to Sophia standards, accreditation, etc., etc. This is all a part of a move towards professionalising IT. And if you think about it, the thing that I like to, the thing that Kevin's heard me say probably multiple times before is, today, if you look at how immature and young we are as an industry, the IT industry, we're still in the days where you're going to the barbers to have your teeth out. If that's our equivalent with the medical profession, there is nothing to stop me tomorrow announcing to the world that I'm a business analyst. Now, it's a case of caveat emptor. It's a case of, well, if I say I'm a business analyst, it's up to you as somebody who's interviewing me to try and figure out whether I am a business analyst or not. Where this moves, where by having generic international standards that we can then accredit and assess, we're starting to move to the point where if someone makes a claim, you've got a very easy way of looking at. Whether or not they have actually got the skill base that they're claiming to have. We're not there yet. I think we're probably 20 years off in the UK, maybe, from the BCS being an accrediting body that can stop you practicing. As in the UK, I can't call myself a lawyer unless I'm, member of the Law Society. And I can't practice if they strike me off. Same with the British Medical Council. So we're moving towards that, but I think we're still 20 to 30 years off being in a position where people will be allowed to or not allowed to practice. Oh, Rebecca, hi.
Hello. Really good talk. Thank you very much, Steve. I just had a question on the balance of what you're talking about, because I'm in DCMS at the moment, soon to be spinning out, but basically for all our recruitment, we use the DDAT framework that's already been mentioned. I can't see the chat for some reason. I think it might be the security on my laptop. But in terms of that sort of framework, the big criticism people have of it in government is that it's quite sort of vertical. So you're sort of looking at, somebody who's a UX designer, and you might need somebody who's a service delivery manager who can also do a bit of UX design, and how do you sort of balance that? But then I think in the fact that it is quite rigorous in terms of you're saying this person either has a skill set or doesn't, but then you often need people that can cover more than one discipline. It almost makes this problem, perpetuates the problem you're talking about, where you kind of get this slightly unprofessional way of looking at the skill set. So I was just wondering how you balance those things where you might need to recruit people and not have the capacity to recruit someone every single skill set in a framework, but actually you do need them to be able to do the job as well, which is something we really struggle with. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you couldn't have teed that up better. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share a couple of exercises that can be used. They can be used as part of a recruitment exercise. They can be used as part of a team evaluation. So they're quite useful in that respect. So one of the things you can do when you're interviewing people is let me just slideshow this and share it. So hopefully you'll see something called role play. What skills did you actually use last week? So again, this is where you can tease out hidden skills. You can find out whether or not what you're asking for is aligned appropriately. But what you can do is you can ask things like pick a typical week or project. Can you list the 5 or 7 tasks you did? What was the goal? What did you use? And then what you can do post that discussion, it depends. So I'm actually with one client, we're actually asking them to talk to an AI about this. And then the AI is actually going back and going, these were the Sophia skills that we used. So we're actually using an AI interview tool to get people to talk about what they did. And then the AI tool actually goes, based on what was said, these are the Sophia skills that we used in that. So, but this is a typical, you can do this as a human exercise very easily. So you might say to someone, okay, you're applying for the role of business analyst. Tell me what you did last week. Tell me about what you did. Well, actually, I ran a stakeholder workshop. Well, that tells me they're using relationship management skills, stakeholder relationship management skills. I cleaned some data manually. Well, okay. They probably weren't doing a lot of data analysis, but they were doing some data management, probably at level 3. So that's mid-level maturity. They delivered the workshop insights to the product team. So in that role, they'd actually taken what they'd learned in the workshop and they were using consultancy skills to be able to brief people. So they spoke with the developers about the usability issue that was identified with the stakeholders. So that gave 2 different types of UX skill. So analysis and evaluation. And what you can see there is they probably use some of the skills that were on the JD, but they probably use some of the skills that weren't on the JD as well. So you get a real feel for actually, are they going to hit the skills we've got on the JD, and have they got any other additional skills that they can bring to the party? And that's literally using that poster that I've described with the different skills and the different maturity levels. Now, the reason I raise the AI is because the reason I raise the AI is because until we do have a plethora of Sophia skilled people out there, or Sophia assessment skilled people, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to rely on tools like well-trained AI to be able to help us with that.
The thing I potentially like about that as well, Steve, though, is we talk a lot about AI having implicit bias, but I think in this scenario it removes the bias because it stops you making personal decisions about someone's skills. It judges them purely on what they've actually inputted, what they've said.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share the screen again. I'm going to show you a little AI tool that I've built based on me developing a bit of knowledge, a knowledge base, just to show you. So this is the Sophia 9 Skills Expert beta. I'm going to drop it a job description. So effectively, yeah. If I delete that, if I start off with, I have a job description for you. That's a prompt that's pre-built. It's going to come back. It's going to say, right, give me the JD, please. So I'm going to give it the job description. And it's now, the first thing it's going to do is say, is this actually an IT role? Because I'm not going to apply Sophia Framework to something that's not an IT or digital role. So it's done a set of pre-checks to go, yeah, this is actually a JD. And now what it's doing is it's actually gone, well, actually, based on that JD, these are the core Sophia skills that you are looking for. And it's all based on Sophia 9. And then it goes, there are some generic attributes that are relevant to this role. If I've explicitly picked up that generic attribute from the description, I will put it into here. One of the things that this has got the capability of doing is it has got the capability of saying the job description that you've written is actually 4 roles. You're trying to find a unicorn. I would suggest that you break this down into smaller roles. Because that's one of the things that I also find is when people try and create unicorns within a job description, and they're after someone who can do pretty much everything, including nip out for lunch for the whole team. So there you go. So that again, I don't have to be a Sophia expert. There are tools out there. I can give it my job description written in plain English, and it can go, these are the Sophia skills that you're looking for at the level that you've described. So the question came up about where do we use this now, and how can we use this? What I'll do is I'll keep where I am and move into a tool that I've become very familiar with, called Skills TX. It's pretty much my go-to tool when it comes to this. The reason I use it is because it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's actually useful from both a candidate perspective, an employee perspective, and also from an employer perspective. So the challenge I have with the British Computer Society one is it's completely aimed at me developing my portfolio about my career, and then me keeping that up to date and being able to present it to people. The reason that I sort of looked at Skills TX was because it solved a problem. So as an individual, I can have my skills profile. So here I've been through the assessment, I've answered the questions, and I've built my profile about things that I have. They're my generic attributes, and then I can talk about specific skills. So enterprise business architecture, strategic planning. These are all different skills. You can see they're organised by the subject and the subcategory, the category, subcategory before you get to the skill. Here it can tell me, here I can say, oh yeah, okay, well that's great, you're competent at that, you're competent at this and proficient at this. But now is where we start to get serious about, well actually, we're now reviewing you, Steve, against the role of program director. So here is what our job description says a program director needs to be. And actually, you're a bit low on that one. So we might want to add an action. And that action might be to go and get some training or some mentoring or whatever. And okay, these ones aren't really covered. These are skills that you've said you've got, but actually you've said they're desirable, but you haven't said if you've got them or not. So we've got action plans across all of this. So, and again, oh, look at that. You're actually overqualified in that. So we suggest that you do a profile update. So effectively, I can compare against the current role that I'm in. I can compare against the future role if there's a future role that I'm aiming towards. So that's me as a person working within an organization. What might I be interested in if I'm actually part of the leadership team who are responsible for staffing and skilling up the digital team? I might be interested in all sorts of facts. Like I might be interested in what we have and what we need. So these are the employee skills by category. Here are the employee skills by what we need. What's the mismatch there? It might be things like what skills have we got? We're looking to put together a team. So what skills have we currently got available to us? What gap filters have we got? So this is looking at it from an organizational perspective, whereby you would say, actually, we know the roles that we've got defined in the organization, and we also know what people have filled out in their assessments. So therefore we can start to do what skills have changed over time. So there's all sorts. We want to build a team. We need some skills in that team. It will suggest the right people to go into that team for us. So this is the sort of thing when you're looking at it from a perspective, and this is all based on having some requirements, and requirements are typically what you'd think of as a role. So you would go in and define a role. But if I don't know, if I'm thinking, well, I need to create a role, what have I got that's available from a sample, because I need a sample quickly, I might say business. I'm looking for something with business and analysts, so I might want to, I might want to bring in business analyst role. So here's a business analyst role. That sample, I'm going to copy that requirements. And then I've got the sample business analyst role that I can go and look at and start to work with. I can edit it and go and add my own skills or whatever. So from a managing perspective, what I would say is don't confuse this with a HRMS. Don't confuse this with things like Bamboo, for example. This type of tool does not do things like approve holidays. It doesn't do things like I need to take a leave of absence, or I'm on, I've got maternity leave coming up. It doesn't do anything around what was my bonus structure, what are my company benefits. It is literally a skills management platform. And the way that Skills TX works is it plugs into other HRMS solutions. So you'll have a common reference between Bamboo or SAP HR or whatever that links into that person's skills profile. So if you want to pull it into your HR management system, there are lots of examples where we've actually squirted information from the skills management platform into the more wider HR management system to make it available for people, based on whatever it is that they want. Why is this important? I think I want to cover why this is important. And I want to just give you a couple of stats that you might find interesting. I believe that some sort of remote or hybrid working solution is the way that we're going to move forward in the digital skills world. I can't see us going back to a purely bums on seats approach, because in this talent-driven world, I can't see us restricting ourselves to whoever lives in my street or my neighborhood. So I just cannot see that happening. I can't see us going back to that. So once you accept that we're always going to be in some sort of hybrid or remote environment for digital skills going forwards, you've then got to say to yourself, well, where am I going to find my talent? Where am I going to look for that talent? And at the moment, if we're all fishing in the same pond that says I'm going to start all of my adverts with Java developer rather than experienced developer who we will give a month's cross training from their current object-oriented language into their new object-oriented language, then you're restricting your pool. There are 19.4 million clothing manufacturing assemblers that are going to be removed by robotics from the workforce over the next 10 years. They have all got remarkable eye for detail. They've all got remarkable skills and expertise in working fast and working accurately. They have all got skills that if you take them out of the clothing working sector and do a severe assessment against them, they are actually skills that can be reused in IT. But if you want to limit to yourself to whoever can get to your office in the next half hour, that's your choice. So using standards like this, we can take people from outside of IT and go, what are the cross-trainable skills that we can identify using something like Sophia? And I'm actually working on an AI tool at the moment that says, if people are talking about non-digital environments, what digital skills could we cross-train them into quickly? Is it an eye for detail? Is that useful? Is having the ability to talk to people useful? Is having the ability to structure something in the way that they deliver it? One of the things that you can do very quickly with an AI tool is tell how well someone structured their answer to you. So that tells you whether they've got a structured, logical approach to the way that they deliver information. That's nothing to do with what their last job was. That's to do with them as a person. That's an innate skill that you can pick up on and you can develop on. And that's why I think tools like this are going to become more and more important, because we're going to be looking in more and more interesting places to find the talent that we need. And we've got to come up with a way of being able to sanitize that And we need to do that without it being, have they got Microsoft experience? Have they got Oracle experience? Otherwise, we're just going to keep circling the same drain. I don't know if you view that as controversial. I've had a few people tell me that they will never hire people if they haven't got the relevant Microsoft qualification. That's their choice. That's their choice. The other reason I get a bit hung up on languages is because if you focus purely on a language, you ignore domains of expertise. And what do I mean by domain of expertise? So the skill is important. So the skill of programming, I'll come back to programming because it's an obvious and easy one to pick on. But the skill of programming is an important skill. But if I've spent 20 years in my domain of expertise is pharmaceuticals, how long is it going to take me to be effective in fintech? Just the fact that I've worked on Java and you need Java does not make me useful. It means that I can code some language, but the domain of expertise I've been working in is probably far more relevant at that point than the language that I wrote the software in. Oh, okay, some comments, I think. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Louise. We've got just under 10 minutes left. I'd like to throw it open for people to be able to give their observations about, I'm sitting here, an expert, definition of an expert is a stranger who has been able to share information with you and potentially charge you money for it, right? So, but we are all experts. We have all got lived experience in this call. So from that perspective, I'd be really interested in understanding how you are fighting this fight. How are you getting on top of things like skills gaps? How are you getting on top of the fact that you need to suss out very quickly whether or not people have got the right skills to be able to deliver in your environment? And also, is anyone actually using Sophia on the call, or is this a completely new concept to you? Let me throw that out there. Christy's got a hand up, I think. Are you allowing people to speak, Kevin? Yep. Well, it looks like we are. Hi, Christy.
Hello. I've just unmuted myself, so hopefully.
Okay.
We've been reviewing the Sophia framework for probably going on just over a year. And coincidentally, yesterday I did a team learning time where I launched our survey. So what we've done is we've taken the generic attributes and then specific professional skills within different capability sets, so business analyst, delivery, architecture, and created just a couple of Microsoft forms. We've gone very low tech for information gathering, and our process would be the individual fills it in, they have a peer to support them, they complete on their behalf, there's a conversation, the individual updates because their data is the point of reference for our database.
Yeah.
And then we use that to do some analysis. So yeah, we're very early in our data gathering journey, but we've put a lot of thought and effort into actually what elements of Sophia we wanted to take forward.
Yeah.
And because there are so many, it felt quite overwhelming to begin with, but I think we've narrowed it down now.
Yeah, okay. And if you want to do practical workshop type stuff, give me a shout, because I've got loads of team stuff that allows you to very quickly get to the heart of what people have got. The assessment, people tend to go on best behavior when they do a screen-based assessment.
Yeah.
So I've got a load of tools and stuff that you can use to actually get people to workshop stuff, and you can literally, they can then go and go, actually, I was using that skill, wasn't I? And we were using that skill, and we observed people using that skill.
That's
really
quite cool, Steve.
That's quite
Thank
useful.
You.
Neil.
Steve, hi.
Hi.
Nicely presented. I was wondering, whilst you're talking obviously about employees here effectively, what about new incoming talent? How would you assess them?
So depending on the platform you're using, so one of the reasons I like Skills TX is they're a per seat licensed organization. So effectively, if you've got people that you're using the tool to develop them and you're getting the analytics around them, then that's a seat. What they have as well is they have what's called candidate option, and the candidate you pay nothing for. So if you want to take people to second stage interview and then get them to do a Sophia assessment based on the job role, before they come into the second interview, you can do that, and it costs you nothing from a seat perspective. So one of the things that we're doing with Arnold Clark is when they're getting people who are going to come for second stage interview, they do their Sophia assessment as a candidate, and then the interviewer has the ability to probe that assessment. So probe their claims of skills against some challenging questions around them, showing how they've used those skills. So specifically with Skills TX, if you haven't got Skills TX, you could put a Google sheet together with the relevant skills and just share that for candidates and ask them to compare, to mark their maturity against the skills.
Yeah, I get it. So there's no sort of something you can immediately say, oh yeah, you've got X, Y, and Z, because there's some form of external source.
Not at the moment. One of the things that I'm working on with this AI tool that we're developing is actually that, where we go, there are skill sets. So there are skills that naturally cluster together. So if someone mentions a skill, come back and ask them, are they using this skill and this skill as well? Because skills do tend to cluster together.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think over time, Steve, that this might, if not replace, become a fundamental aspect of people's CVs, having a skills table that demonstrates the core capabilities?
Interesting. If you work in the defence sector now as a contractor, you'll often put your Sophia-based assessed skills on the back page of your CV now. So it is actually becoming, and again, there isn't one of the things there isn't an international standard for yet, but I think there's going to be one developed, which will be interchangeability of people's Sophia profiles. So Skills TX are pushing the fact that they've got exportable profiles, and they've published a standard for that. I think what they're hoping for is, as other systems, so there are HR management systems at the moment talking about adding Sophia as a module. The idea would be, well, I can export from, so they by the way, I should also say, if you're an individual and you want to go and do your own Sophia assessment for free, Skills TX offer that, so you can have a permanently free profile on their public website. It's not shown to anybody apart from you, but if you want to go and put a Sophia-based profile together, you can do that for free as an individual on the Skills TX website. But one of the things that they allow you to do is export that, should you want to import it into another skills management system. So I think we're going to start to see a digital ability to transfer these as well, not just a paper version on the back of someone's CV. What I will do just before, so that people have got enough time to make a note before the call ends, is I've just put in the chat my email address and my LinkedIn profile. So if you've got any follow-ups, if you want to explore, if you want a proper demonstration of Skills TX, or you want a proper talk through about how you might implement Sophia, because I'm independent of Skills TX, it's just a platform that I love and that I've worked with and I've implemented for them, but I actually do independent Sophia consultancy as well. So if you go, well, we're not interested in the platform, Steve, but we would like help to get our head around how we might use Sophia, I do that. I offer that sort of consultancy as well. So my email address is available in the chat, as is my LinkedIn profile. If you want a demonstration of anything, or you want to further explore anything that we've discussed today, including me briefing your senior leadership team, because that's one of the things that I often do. I often do executive briefings around this stuff. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to contact me, and we can have a chat.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, Steve. I have on your behalf committed to sending out the attachment that people can open, and anything else that you think is going to be useful to the audience, Steve. So I've got the list of everyone that signed up, so we'll make sure that everybody has access to that.
Okay.
I'll probably include the recording and the transcript as well, so that people can watch it back and stick the transcript into their LLM to get the insights.
Absolutely.
And likewise, if anybody's got any questions off the back of that, feel free to reach out to Steve or drop me a reply to that message, and we'll follow up. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.